All right. Last night, Red Sox were in a bad way in Tampa Bay. Wait, where is that? Where is that park? I don't even know where it is.
Well,
where's the Yankees complex now? What town are they in?
Steinbrenner. I don't know what town, but like they've been bitching about the weather for about a week now. Now I guess the noise was so loud, it was like playing in a boombox. It's always complaining about something. You know, a lot of these other teams also have to play in it. Boy, what a night last night.
Oh, it is in Tampa. Okay.
All right.
It is in Tampa proper.
Look busy. It's busier than the Trop, though. Like, it's better than
a better vibe.
Yeah.
Better vibe.
Much better vibe than the Trop.
Yeah. 16-1, the final score. 16-1. The Red Sox outscored by 15 runs. And it was at 14-1 that I decided I think the game's over now.
I was going to say, it wasn't even that close.
I actually turned it back.
16-1 and not that
I actually
close.
turned it off then. You guys kept texting. I turned it back on and watched more of the atrocity. It's like that rubberneck, man. There's that crash on the other side of the road. Man, we gotta see what's happening over there. Everybody hit the brakes and slow down.
I feel like at 14-1, at that point, it's the third inning, it's 14-1. Anything else that happens in that game, at that point, I don't even want to count. I don't even want to criticize. I don't even want to think about, because all the disasters happened in the first three innings. Everything you needed to know about this Red Sox team happened in the first three innings of this game, in that their starting pitching was bad, their defense was horrific, and they're striking out a ton. These are hallmarks of the 2025 Red Sox. And after the game, Alex Cora was not happy with what went on the field. If we have Alex Cora, have a listen to the manager.
There was a team that was prepared for the other one, and the other one wasn't prepared for them, and that goes from top all the way to the bottom, That wasn't a good night for us, and I'll take the blame, because it seemed like our team wasn't ready to go.
6 out of 8 losses. Is there any consistent problem with this streak right now?
The defense has been bad. The offense has been bad. We've been inconsistent pitching-wise. So those are the three pillars of baseball, and we haven't been good.
Okay, you mentioned yourself. What can you do?
Well, show up tomorrow and prepare them, Obviously, that wasn't a fun night from the get-go. From pitch one, it wasn't fun. So we just got to regroup, come here tomorrow, and play the game, have a clean game. It would be good to have a clean game.
Yeah, sure would.
Be nice.
It sure would for the Red Sox to have a clean game. Are they going to get to that point anytime soon? The mental miscues in the field, the horrible defense in the field, are these issues that will be fixed in short order?
I remember having a caller about mid last week, and they said, man, they're about ready to rake. They're going to run off about 10 or 11 in a row. We had that call here because it was Chicago lined up. Milliken jumped on board. He's like, oh, they're going to eat. They're going to eat big time this weekend. And that's what I started thinking. Maybe this team isn't that good, and I texted you guys. You're like, can't wait to hear 10. And then you see Crochet pitch, and you're like, you kind of take it back a little bit. Crochet makes it right. But other than that, Jesus.
What's the most alarming thing about this team so far?
The other pitchers. And the strikeouts, obviously. It's the strikeouts and the hitting. Runners in scoring. There's so many. Runners in scoring position. How do you rank them? Is it the rotation?
There's everything, right? Defensively, they're an absolute mess.
I think the left side of their infield being as horrible as it's been is alarming. That strikeouts to be expected with how this team approaches
that's
things.
Your design,
right? The pitching, well, you knew coming into the year you had injuries in the rotation. Mm-hmm. So
the Crochet was good.
The starting pitching being a problem at times, not a shocker to me. The left side of the infield, you should have been able to bank on that. I just look at the things you should look at going into the year and say, that won't be a problem. That was on the list. That was on the list of the guaranteed things.
I was saying that's like one of the
Story,
Bregman,
infield,
short infield,
third base,
upgraded third base. Yeah.
Well, as long as Story's hitting well enough to stay in the lineup, well, the left side of the infield, well, nothing's getting through there. I can't. Those are the things I have a hard time believing are true. Alex Bregman sucks at third base now. I know that I think his performance of a year ago was a little overrated and maybe not overrated, but talked about too much about being a Gold Glover, Gold Glover. Yeah, okay. Milliken said it 1,000 times. But wait, now he sucks? That can't happen. Trevor Story, is not good defensively? Since when? When did that happen?
That was a great point by Maz like a week or two ago, too, when he was talking about Bregman. He's like, he's not a perennial Gold Glover. He won one last year.
Right. And it was talked about way too much. But that doesn't mean he's a bad third baseman.
Right.
He's not. We know he's not. We know he's good.
He's not that bad.
He's not this.
No.
And Trevor Story is not this. What happened there? And what's happening with those two guys? And I say it's alarming because those are mental miscues by guys who have been doing it a really long time. And it's alarming because I want to get to the root cause of that. What's causing these guys to have defensive issues to this degree? What's happening inside those four walls that's leading these guys to just not be right to start this year? Those guys are too good for this. What the hell's wrong with this team?
Or Jarren Duran, who was a Gold Glove finalist last year, throwing to the wrong base. The second time in as many days a player has done that. Ceddanne Raphael almost costing you on Sunday against the White Sox. Those are just signs of a poorly coached team, a team that doesn't understand fundamentals. And for a team where you have the Bregmans and the Stories and Alex Cora, you have the veteran leadership, you have a guy who all he talks about is fundamentals, and you don't carry any of those characteristics. The truth is, all these things have existed for the Red Sox for really the last 5 years or so, and they've been a consistent trend. And that's where, when you start talking about blame and where things are going to go, you're going to point at the Alex Coras of the world because, hey, you fired Carlos Feblis, right? Andy Fox, you told those guys to screw. Bregman shows up here and he's infected by whatever this crap defense you play is. It just plagued him. He's all of a sudden sick with it.
That's so weird, though. That's bizarre. Yeah. Jarren Duran, I get, because it's just naturally not the position he came up playing. Right?
But last year,
I can kind of understand a mental mistake from Jarren Duran. I can kind of understand that. That will happen. But those two guys?
Yeah, that's on the player.
Screw it. Yeah, it is. But you might as well
tell me that's coaching. None of that was coaching last night.
Well, there's also
Duran was.
There's part of me that thinks that you can't blame a coaching staff at the major league level
for those mistakes,
for being a complete idiot in the field. I'm sorry, you are a professional baseball player.
Do the fundamentals change?
No.
Any level?
No, they don't change.
You learn this stuff in Little League.
Things when you change, but when we went to Fort Myers for spring training, we did things. No, you're ingrained. It's ingrained in you. At this level, at this age.
No, I mean, it's a mess. I mean,
you don't know what base to throw to?
So what happens when guys get here? What is going on right now? What is changing it?
I don't know. I don't have...
Because you keep firing guys and it doesn't get any better. It doesn't improve. You used to blame the roster. Yeah. It's not the roster.
I don't have that answer. But something is wrong mentally with this team. And what's causing it? What's wrong with this group? What's wrong with this organization?
And Cora wouldn't be the one teaching them fundamentals. That's Kyle Hudson out in the outfield.
I agree.
So that's when you start looking at the head. It's not looking exactly the coach who's putting them or telling them where to throw the ball.
But I do wonder about the composition of the staff. And I've always wondered, there have been so many changes that you just mentioned a few of over Alex Cora's tenure. And there are guys like Fatsy, who we talk about from an offensive perspective and his approach and his philosophies, and I've often wondered if they actually align with Alex Cora's. I think that's a fair question to ask. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing that your manager and other guys on the staff think differently about things, but what if they all think differently about things and nobody's on the same page? And that's what leads to players that mentally are overwhelmed or confused or have it weigh on them to the point where all-star caliber shortstops and third basemen all of a sudden can't play their position. That to me is a wildly alarming thing because it speaks to something bigger with the team, and it's widespread. Milliken just called it a plague. There is a mental plague with this team.
Well, that third inning was certainly a plague. I know Bregman was the only error. I thought the story mess up was worse.
The first one was horrendous. Yeah, whatever hop he thought was coming.
Crazy.
Lou's trying to explain, there's a difference in the where the turf is right.
No.
How about before that when Tristan Casas went basically to the second base, close to shortstop, to field a ball and then let it go, and then Hamilton was behind him.
A mess, man. Absolute mess. Struck out 14 more times too. It's
not great. bad night if you watch that long inning that took nearly a half hour to get through.
That's when the broadcasters start getting upset, too.
Nearly a half hour to get to, and then to watch the Red Sox come up and go 1-2-3. That was the 35 minutes, 40 minutes of the night that it's at its worst for Boston last night. Playing in a minor league ballpark, looking like a minor league team. That's what the Red Sox did last night. We got plenty more to get to, including all of those miscues in that third inning. Alex Cora taking some of that blame, as you heard him say. More on him, more on Alex Cora and how he sounded after the game. And can he sort of pick this team up? Can he be the guy that they need him to be right now? That was offensive, is what it was. The Red Sox should be thankful they were on the road when that happened last night, because they would have been booed out of their own ballpark for that crap that went on in that inning. That was one of the worst innings of Red Sox baseball I've seen in a very long time. It was shocking. Shockingly bad is what it was.
Almost got to go back to when Manny cut off that throw from outfield. And it was like 4 throws to get it in. Oh, God. There was a bad throw to third, too, from center. Guy was rounded second, going from first to third. And the ball kind of just blew. One bounced into third. Like, this is after the Abreu got in the guy down from a week ago. It was like half the distance of that. Like, they weren't on her. They weren't on it, man. Weren't on it at all.
So seeing Alex Cora last night in that post-game interview, he looked emotional. I know that we don't have a way to show that to you on the radio, but if you saw it, you saw and I don't blame you if you didn't, for not being able to tough it out until late last night. We were all watching it live as it happened when they aired it post-game.
I couldn't look away.
I couldn't. And I would get up and, go do something, come back and be like, oh, man, it's still a beatdown. In those games, you kind of hope for, all right, you've lost at 14-1, but you hope for like 14-7.
Yeah.
Right? You hope for 14-8. You hope to get bullpen arms in there that you can beat up on and be like, all right, at least it was an honest effort. No, they never scored another run. But I start thinking about the manager in these situations. How's the manager going to pull it together, reset, get guys to clear their minds, manage the personalities, which I think historically Alex Cora has done a good job at. It's the thing that I think makes him a good manager. Maybe not a great manager, but he's a good manager. And this is now time for him to do that. But he seemed kind of angry and emotional about it after the game.
You said he looked tired a week ago, right?
I thought he looked tired a week ago, dealing with some of the nonsense that's been going on.
He's frustrated
on this team.
Which his job's supposed to be easier because he has his lieutenant in the dugout. That was the biggest thing. The last couple years, Alex Cora's had to be the adult in the room, the veteran in the room. With Bregman there, shouldn't your job be easier at this point in time? Shouldn't he be the middleman between the clubhouse that you've needed?
I wonder if it's enough. I wonder if that guy is enough for him, and if it's there's enough maturity across the room, not with Bregman, but across the rest of the room. You got a lot of younger players on this team. And Alex Cora's best team ever was, of course, 2018. And I think you maybe forget that you had some guys on that roster that were kind of grinders.
Real pros.
That were veterans, that were guys that were not top-line players, but guys who had to really kind of grind it out in their careers and find ways to be a pro and consistently perform to kind of keep their jobs and stay in the league. That was not a team loaded with all-stars. And even a guy like J.D. Martinez on that team, who was an all-star caliber player, he was a guy that had failed. He was a guy that had needed to find his way back, that needed to, show up and do the job the right way every day. Not get too high, not get too low. Right? I think J.D. Martinez pretty much exemplified a guy with the even keel.
Yep.
If that's fair to say. But then you had Bogarts, who was a good, strong, even-keeled leader. You had a guy like Mitch Moreland, who was in his 30s at that point. He was not young. You had, I would even count like Sandy Leone on that team. Right? Guys really kind of liked him. And then you did have the younger crew, which was Betts and Benintendi and Devers. Those were the young guys. But and Jackie Bradley Jr. wasn't that young, so he wasn't kind of in that crew. The guys I mentioned, though, well, those guys were all really freaking good. Those guys.
Jackie
you had the
Bradley.
right mix, yeah.
He could play center field.
No, Bradley was old. Bradley was an older player. He
Yeah.
was not as young as you think he was.
He could still play.
Yeah, 28 at the
defensively.
time.
28 at the time. Thank you. So those young guys were Betts and Benintendi and Devers, and they were all awesome. So you didn't really have guys like Casas, who was failing miserably
Tool bag.
at the plate. You didn't have the pressure on one of those guys like I think Christian Campbell has,
For sure.
given that he signed the big contract after playing 5 games, and there are these massive expectations that are now put on him as a result of that. So the younger guys were easier to manage then. You had older guys that had been around the block. I'm forgetting Hanley. Hanley was on that team, wasn't he?
Till May. And then they told him to
booted
kick rocks for Blake
Yeah,
Swihart.
they DFA'd him, right?
Like Brock Holt there is like a veteran guy. Like
Grinders.
Yeah.
You had some grinders, man. Grinders and older guys.
That's like where the Rob Snyder comes in, right? Like that kind of guy who may not be the best player on the team, but grinded to even have a big league career and is now a decent platoon player.
Think about who they acquired and eventually won the World Series MVP for that team.
Yeah, Steve Pierce.
Steve Pierce, right? Older guy. Had, again, seen plenty. Didn't need to be sort of managed.
What about Jelly Knee?
Eduardo Nunez? Good old Jelly Knee? Did he play a lot? How often did he play? I don't know.
He was in that World Series.
127 games.
127 games.
All right, but you look at that team and you say that's a team that needs less. He didn't need to manage those guys on a day in, day out, like emotional maturity, the fundamentals. Like they had that crap down
Right.
on that team.
The problem with this team, too, is some of the guys that you thought broke through last year. Jaron Duran really struggling so far this season. Tanner Houck, I don't know what's going on there, but certainly not the player that
Regress.
he was.
That
in
was
the
my
first half
regression
of last
candidate.
year. Yeah, it's not good.
In 2018, they started out 17-3 over their first 20 games. It's one of only 2 times with Alex Cora that his teams have started through their first 20 with a winning record. The other time was in 2021 when they made the playoffs.
I think you go back to 2019 when they started slow on the West Coast trip is the last time we saw Cora this frustrated this early in the year. I think the last couple of years he's knew he had to be patient with these things because you had the younger roster and you had these players that, let's be real, you were trying to overperform what people thought of you. But at the same time, if it requires having the 2018 roster for it to function, I think that's an indictment on the manager. That's not an indictment on the team right now.
Although this is now a trend with the manager. To the research team we go. Neil Collins and the research team have this today. Red Sox record after 20 games in Alex Cora's 7th season. His teams have had a winning record after the first 20 games only twice, 2018 and 2021. But here's some of the more interesting stuff. In 5 of 7 years, Alex Cora teams have made at least 15 errors in the first 20 games of the season. So sloppy defense in the first 3 weeks of the season has been a staple of Cora's teams. And in the last 2 years, they've made 20 errors in their first 20 games at the start of the year, both years. In terms of offense, last year's team had the fewest extra base hits in their first 20 games of any of Cora's teams with 53. This year's team is on pace to be worse than that. They have 48 currently. In 2 of Cora's 7 seasons, they had at least 170 strikeouts in the first 20 games. Last year with 202, this year with 179 and 2 games to go. And I would say that record is within reach for this team.
For sure.
That the rate that they strike out.
Especially against this Rays pitching staff, which is going to blow 100 by you with nasty breaking stuff.
And you know that that's not good news for Trevor Story.
To be fair, he was, yesterday almost had another home run on the warning track to end that game. And he had a hit. At least he's showing up offensively.
So I think that there's a trend here about getting off to bad starts and not being ready for the season.
I was going to say, isn't that an approach with spring training? Isn't that what that tells you right there?
Yes, something is wrong with how they run spring training. They were not ready for the year.
Well, isn't that always what Cora references as the 2019 lesson that he took so much blame for where, hey, I didn't have them ready to go. I tried to slow play it after the World Series, and he said it threw the rotation off for the entire season. But that was supposed to be a lesson learned moving forward. And then you saw in his first season back in 21 where they came out, the first series wasn't great, but then they got hot. That's supposed to be a lesson that Alex Cora's claimed he's learned or that he figured out, after his second year as Red Sox manager.
So I think, you got to question how long it takes for them to come out of this malaise. But I do think that you should not lose sight of the fact that what you do in April can play a big role at the end of this year. And if the Red Sox had lost 2 fewer games in their bad stretch, or 2 more games, I should say, in 2021, they're missing the playoffs. They made the playoffs by a thin margin. And this is the type of team that I think going into the year you said could be on the margin, shouldn't be on the margin. Maybe they've put themselves there in that spot because of this start.
What you felt in week 1, you don't feel anymore.
I still feel they are a much better team than what we have seen to this point.
They are, but that doesn't change the fact that these are blown opportunities in winnable games,
Yes.
which you should not be taken for granted.
Scoreboard. Like,
Yeah.
you're what you are.
The Red Sox were talking about Steinbrenner Field being a boombox before the game. So they I guess they don't love it there. We'll talk about that. The Red Sox at least are in Tampa, where I believe it's warm. So I don't have to worry about any cold weather.
Right across the street from Buccaneers Field.
There's also watchability rankings of major league teams, and the Red Sox are ranking high. They must have done those rankings prior to last night's game.
But you couldn't turn away. So maybe it started last night.
Maybe. If you like that clip, check out more videos from Zolak and Bertrand here. For more Red Sox analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.